Number 10. Corruption. One of the things we learn in our fight against William Afton is that he seeks to corrupt other animatronics, even good animatronics like Glamrock Freddy, who is pretty much our ally throughout the game and ultimately wants to help us get out of the Pizzaplex safely. In the final boss fight, Afton in his current in-game form will attempt to take control of Glamrock Freddy, and we have to try and harm him to prevent him from doing so. You know that he was successful when Freddy's eyes glow purple. If this happens, he will attempt to harm instead of help Gregory, aka you. Number 9. An Army of Animatronics. While you can try to prevent Glamrock Freddy from becoming corrupted, there are some animatronics that you can't really save from Afton's influence. Eventually, Glamrock Chica, Roxanne Wolf, and Montgomery Gator will all join him in his attempt to attack Gregory. The Blob, or I guess the Freddy amalgamation if you prefer, also seems to be in league with Afton, at least initially in the game, although they are not specifically controlled by Afton, which means they either simply want to join Afton's cause because they believe in it for some reason, or have their own reasons for lashing out at young Gregory. The other animatronics don't seem to be in control of their behavior and are more like William Afton's puppets, completely controlled and willed to cause harm by Afton himself, likely going against their own initial programming. Number 8. Hunter. While later on Afton mainly relies on his influence over the other animatronics to do his bidding, initially he was involved, possibly directly, in taking out any Fazbear employees who came to investigate just what he was up to in the tunnels below the Pizzaplex. Large quantities of power were being drained down there, and when employees were sent to investigate, none of them managed to ever return apparently. This implies that they were all killed, likely by Afton himself in his new form as Burntrap, or some lesser form of him perhaps as he bided his time becoming Burntrap, improving his appearance and gaining more and more power. Improving his appearance. Ugh. It's not really improved, he's pretty gross. And as he gained more and more power, literally with electrical power, and on an influential scale.
And at 7, low power. With Freddy being our animatronic deterrent mech, it's pretty important that he keeps his charge so that when we need him, we can use him. However, one of the most shocking things is when he runs out of power. Earlier in that game, he is about to run out of power, or at least in my memory, he did run out of power, so he ejected us and then gets into a recharge station. This made me believe that if he runs out of power, he would just drop us on the floor. No, he doesn't. Learned that the hard way when I was glitched and stuck inside of him. So I let the power run out in the hopes that he would drop me, and then when he ran out, he just ripped me out of his stomach and killed me. Which makes me think that it's not his power that we're seeing being depleted, it's his integrity level that we watch go down, but oh well. This is certainly shocking if you don't know it's going to happen, like when Eddie VR on his second channel had the shocking wake-up call when looking at the map. He was just looking at the map, Freddy ran low on power, he ran out and then just pulled him out. He didn't get a low power warning because he was in the map. This was also the same video when he told Freddy that he better not betray him, making things oh so much worse. And at 6, Vani's room. Now, the path I've taken in my first and current playthrough of Security Breach, since they're both the same playthrough, is going to Phaser Blast or Phaser Quest or whatever the laser tag one is, because I wanted to play laser tag. Also, it totally happened and I flipped out. It was amazing. But on laser tag, or I guess like at the end of laser tag, you can find a secret area through a vent that you have to go back through so Music Man isn't there. But the room you end up finding actually has Vani in it along with her name on the wall, and it also has a secret Princess Quest machine. At least this time, it's Princess Quest 3. If you don't know, Princess Quest is a minigame present in the mobile version of Help Wanted, which is the way Glitch Trap gets incorporated into the mobile port. However, there's no number, it's just like Princess Quest, so it's the first one. Now apparently there's 3 of them, plus, you know, if Vani saw you, you'd be dead, which just adds to the kind of like scare factor. And what adds to the mystery is that you can find a lore bag in Bonnie Bowl that tells you about a Princess Quest 1 machine hidden somewhere in the building. I'm guessing like the actual Fazcade room. But since Princess Quest 1 and 3 are here, I'm assuming that there's also a Princess Quest 2, which I think reveals not only more lore, but potentially another ending. Since Vani is sleeping next to one of the machines, it makes it seem kind of important. And the lore is the scariest thing out of everything in this series. Halfway through into number 5, Broken Freddy. Now, as if fixing Freddy wasn't enough, he also has to go through something that makes him need to be fixed, right? Well, yeah, that's how it works. And the first time you see Freddy laying down broken because he couldn't get to parts and service is so depressing and worrying that you might end up losing your animatronic repellent suit of mech armor. Unless you aren't sure if they're going to end up betraying you and end up not getting emotionally attached to Freddy. Wow, I sound like I have trust issues now. Maybe I should go to therapy. But like then again, like therapists are like the English teachers of the brain. They like try to find like hidden meanings in like everything. thing, like the symbolism that like the author intended. Like, no. Like the reason you want to sleep in a blanket is because you want to be back in your mother's womb kind of analysis, and it's like, no, because I need it to be the right temperature, bro. But honestly, after seeing Freddy like that, I maybe really do need therapy, but for that, not for anything else. The actual broken Freddy moment is very sad, and then having to go out alone and face all these things without your boy is pretty damn terrifying. Especially because at this point, Vani was introduced and used a couple times before you could actually get back into Freddy. Also, what happens like almost immediately after this is pretty horrifying. And at 4, Trash Compactor. Now after figuring out what I needed to do, destroying my main Chica was the first thing I did. I already blew her back out, so I might as well finish the job, right? Well, let me tell you that it was still a very intense scene. Firstly, I thought that you would have to actually like lure her into the trash compactor instead of just pushing a button when she's not close and starting a cutscene. So I was trying to actually like lure her into it after placing the Monty stuff because she wasn't trying to eat it. So I was like stunning her and like having her chase me, and that was terrifying doing that. But then the cutscene that plays when you actually stop being a moron is even scarier, since this is the scene that we had in the trailer where it looks like a giant pillar fell on her, but no, you're actually crushing her in a trash compactor. And you as like a 6-year-old or a 10-year-old or however the old Gregory is, are able to kick off her beak, and then she gets crushed again. But when she gets sucked into the actual like trash chute, she pulls you with her, which is really horrifying, especially for me, someone who's afraid of trash, which is why I don't watch. Yeah, I'm not gonna finish that sentence. That's currently where I ended my last stream, but the day before this goes live, I'm streaming FNAF again on my Twitch, so I guess I'll be past that when this comes out, but oh well. At this point, I don't know what happens after that, but I'm sure it will be even more terrifying.
Number 3, From Whence He Came. While the blob initially seems to be allied with Burntrap, as it also strikes out at Gregory, we later learned that this might not actually be the case. The blob is the one who ends up grabbing Burntrap when he tries to escape as the cave and tunnel system begins to collapse, depending on which ending you get and what's going on. It seems the blob either did not want to be left alone or actually has feelings of pain and vengeance attached to William Afton and Burntrap. Burntrap's fate remains uncertain, but it's definitely implied that he is killed during the cave-in, and likely so is the blob. Of course, this is the unkillable and seemingly immortal William Afton we're talking about, so there are also many reasons to believe that this is not the end for him, as, you know, he always comes back. Always. Number 2, Death Animation. While Burntrap being overtaken by the Freddy amalgamated blob / Elizabeth / just the blob, whatever you want to call it, and one of the endings seems to imply that he has died, or at the very least has been defeated, we don't actually get to see his death happen. We just see him basically like pulled away by this blob as Glamrock Freddy and Gregory manage to escape while the underground tunnel and cave system caves in. However, through fans hacking the game, they've claimed that they have found some unused Burntrap files, and within that an unused death animation for the character. There could still be a way to unlock those unused files, of course, as it's still early days for this game, and there are likely tons of clues and hidden lore still left uncovered as of yet. After all, this game is massive, but the other option is that Burntrap's death was initially going to be shown in one of the endings, but was ultimately cut to leave it more ambiguous as to whether or not he might return, and whether or not he actually survived. Perhaps they wanted to kill him off initially, but then decided they'd rather leave the option open for Afton to return once again. I personally think they maybe were like, we could make Vani this big character and then like say goodbye to Afton, and then they got cold feet as they were getting near the end of that. They're like, oh, people won't like it if Afton's gone. Of course, all of the people that have played the game are like, more Vani, less Afton. Number 1, no jump scare. Although all the other animatronic antagonists in Five Nights at Freddy Security Breach have their own jump scare if they manage to catch you, Burntrap is the only animatronic who doesn't seem to have one. This is likely because, well, he doesn't really catch you himself, but instead gets other animatronics to lash out at you, preferring to use them to get to you instead of pursuing you as Gregory himself. This just goes to show us how much this character has evolved and really grown in terms of his power, becoming the mastermind who pulls the strings as opposed to doing his own dirty work. And I know what you're all gonna say, he's always been the mastermind, Amanda. You're right, he has been, but I just mean, remember initially he used to kill people? That was his thing. And now he's like, nah, everyone else just kill people for me. I'm tired. I'm like, look at me, I'm barely a human anymore. I'm just a little bit of bone and a little bit of gums. That's about it.
And its end, family ties. The first couple of trailers for Security Breach featured a lot of Vani talking. However, she was talking to our player character Gregory, saying things in such a way that indicates that she has some form of involvement with him, be it as a sister or even as a mother, since she says things like, let's get you home and put you to sleep, instead of let's get you home so you can go to sleep. It's small things like this that indicate that somehow Vani would have a link to Gregory. However, in recent trailers, they've abandoned this idea seemingly, making no effort to reference their relationship or explain it further. This bothers me because I don't want to have to be worrying about goddamn familial relationships in this game while I'm trying to figure out the lore before anyone else does, because no matter what I come up with, someone in the comments says that I'm not the first to think of it, unless it's totally outlandish and everyone hates it. And at 9 hidden images. The first ever Security Breach trailer featured a shot of Gregory standing in front of broken security cameras showing the classic no signal static. However, there seemed to be faint images still able to show through those frames, but it was impossible to really tell. Trust me, I tried. But the biggest mistake in this case wasn't something the trailer did, but rather something they didn't do. They had the coolest opportunity to drop some wicked Easter eggs on us by using those static screens to show faded stills from old security cameras, as an homage to where the series started, but instead they just made it look like a load of static for no reason. They knew damn well we'd be coming over every single frame of that trailer, but did they throw us a bone? No. Probably because if they had, we would have taken that bone and ran with it until there was no way the game could meet our expectations. We'd think it was like gonna be this, like some Heart Gold, Soul Silver Pokemon thing where we get to explore previous regions as well, but that obviously would not be the case, but we still would have done it though, even if it was obvious that it wasn't where it's going. And at 8, Music Man Spider. Music Man is already creepy as hell, okay? He feels like that uncle that's just sitting around. Whenever you show up to like a family gathering or event, he's just there. He's eating the finger sandwiches in the corner. He's just like staring you down. He chills behind you in Ultimate Custom Night. And then just like your old neighbors, he tells you to keep the racket down, resulting in a jump scare if you make or cause too much noise. But here comes FNAF 9 with some goddamn hallucination, arachnophobia f***ing looking because Music Man has like 6 legs now and is gigantic and got like crawling out of a sewer. That got real creepy real fast. Considering how I'm arachnophobic and I already hated this guy. But to those who are arachnophobic and robophobic, which is the fear of robots, they're going to find these sections of the game absolutely unplayable. While yes, this guy is in Security Breach, I'm putting him on this list because I don't want him to be. I feel like it's a mistake to include this character. This is going to cause me to Security Breach my pants.
Number 7, he survived. So obviously, if you have played Security Breach or watched any of your favorite YouTubers or streamers play it at this point, you know that William Afton managed to survive and make it into the game. Not only that, but his physical body even manages to somehow be around. I know, I'm like, isn't this thing completely destroyed at this point? Apparently not. It shows up once more fused with an animatronic suit, managing to have survived all the awful things that have happened to it, like being spring-locked and burned alive. I think he was burned alive twice actually, and also possibly possessed or cursed, depending on which continuity you subscribe to. Though it should be noted that this is probably the most decayed and worse for wear we've seen William Afton look in the flesh. Number 6, Burn Trap. This version of William Afton is known as Burn Trap. Burn Trap is an amalgamation of a bunch of different animatronics, and I believe we actually found the name Burn Trap through hacking the game and through looking at the file names. Burn Trap is actually a withered spring Vani suit that also has endoskeleton parts from Springlock, Glamrock, and Nightmare Animatronic builds as well. Of course, the corpse of William is also permanently bonded with this suit as well, and much of his corpse beneath is visible because of just how withered the suit is. Very little of the suit is still visible, and you can even see all of Afton's skeletal looking gum exposed bottom jaw, as the suit no longer has its bottom jaw attached. Ew. Number 5, trailer lines. When fans looked into the files belonging to Burn Trap within the game, they learned that there was actually a ton of content stored there that simply wasn't used at all in Security Breach, at least as far as we know right now at this moment in time when I'm recording this. However, this content was designed and programmed into his character, it just was never used. Among this content were 2 lines featured in one of the Security Breach trailers that many fans suspected belonged to William Afton himself. Well, it turns out that apparently we were right about that. However, while the lines were found within his files, they were never uttered in the actual game. Either they were put there with the intention of being used, but an opportunity never really presented itself that made sense, or they were used and then later they were cut from the game for some reason. Among them, I believe, was the line, "You will do as I say, you will bring me what I want, and if you fail me, then you will, both of you, burn." Unfortunate, because that line was honestly something I wanted to know more about in terms of how it played into the plot and then the overall lore of the franchise. Like, what does William Afton want? Who is burning? Which two people? Is there more than two? Number 4, the ruins. Where did William Afton as Burntrap come from? Well, it seems in the game that Vani was tasked with recovering his body, digging up the ruins of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place, which the Mega Pizzaplex happens to have built on top of. Recruiting the Glamrock animatronics against their will, she brings them to the ruins of Freddy Fazbear's and has them dig something up. Likely that something is William Afton's tattered corpse. It's gotta be really tattered at this point. That is how he is able to return with Vani's help and some convenient construction with the Pizzaplex being built on top of the Pizza Place. Although this likely was also part of his greater plot as Glitchtrap. Fazbear may have still held the deed to that land and, they decided that they should just make use of it instead of selling that lot and then buying a new one to build on. Makes sense. Although I imagine they would have had to buy more land around it as well, because the Pizzaplex is massive.
Getting close to the end, in at number 3, mini-arenas. Now, I don't know what the hell those tiny little things were at the end of the latest Security Breach trailer, but they were one hell of a mistake in my head. Like, what? The whole point of the mini-arenas was that they were Bellora's children, but Bellora has been dealt with, and that was a whole thing that should have been like 10 years in the past or something like that, okay? So what's the deal? The mini-arenas, even if they are nightmare versions, have no place in this game, especially if they're nightmares in fact. So like, what the absolute living hell? Why must you do this to me, Scott? Stop torturing me with these goddamn additional animatronics! Also love you. Penultimately, in at number 2, the arm. Now, while there seemed to be nothing wrong with the actual arm, the main mistake they made was never mentioning it again, or even anywhere close to referencing it, which to me is one hell of a mistake, because if you forget, the arm was like the one thing that everyone was freaking out about at the end of the very first trailer. And then they didn't include it in any trailer afterwards, and especially because those were actual gameplay footage, which makes me think that it's not really going to be in the game. It makes it seem like it was intended to build hype, but not actually be in the game, which makes me think that it's going to be a mistake. If Vani is actually meant to be trying to save William, or I guess resurrect him, shouldn't there be more of an allusion to that in the trailers? Because this is a pretty big thing that needs to be handled at some point. I guess like they could be omitting it for surprise purposes, but I'd rather know something like that is going to be in the game rather than be surprised. I don't know, maybe I'm just spoiled, or maybe I want an actual answer from Scott for once, but either way, it was a mistake. Finally, and in number 1, story. There seems to be a lot of conflicting data and points in the FNAF series as a whole, yes, but also in the trailers. Like how in the trailer, Vani seemingly tells us to come home and that it won't happen again, which is a whole other can of worms, like I said, that suggests that Vani is Gregory's mother, but I talked about that earlier. But that line also suggests that Gregory ran away from the Pizzaplex. But in recent trailers, we learn that Gregory gets trapped in there accidentally. And in the RTX trailer, we hear Vani say, "Gregory, it's getting late, let's get home and put you to bed." But we know that he's only there late as an accident, so what's the deal here? And even in the first gameplay trailer, we hear Vanessa say that she can get us out of this place, but then we learn from Freddy that the doors don't open until 6. She also says that we won't want to be here at 6 AM, but that seemingly is the only time that we can actually get out of the doors. So is this hinting that the 12 AM to 6 AM classic gameplay version is going to lead to a bad ending? Maybe, but even so, why are the trailers contradicting themselves before the game even releases? This is usually something that happens 3 games after a game's release, okay? Like FNAF 4 was conflicting with like everything else, wasn't it? So yeah, what the hell, Scott? I have no idea. And at 9, have a map. After gaining access to the main atrium of the Pizzaplex, which could happen in like the first 45 minutes if you're not an idiot like me and aren't speedrunning, because then it happens in like the first 5 or something. The bot that offers you a map as soon as you get out is firstly not there originally and it just appears and then jump scares you, and the second can actively somehow pull you out of Freddy in order to give you the map. Like, I get it, it's an important part of the game, but come on. Plus, then after Freddy is taken, okay, another map bot shows up to give you an additional map for the security tunnels. But like, what the hell, man? That one came out of absolutely nowhere. Like, the first time Freddy kind of warns you about it, he's like, oh yeah, you can get a map on the 2nd floor. But this time, it's completely uncalled for, and it's actually terrifying, since it's very similar to the jump scare that causes us all to panic, because then the animatronics start spawning behind behind us after we get caught by a security guard. So, yeah. If I could go back and do the new animatronics list, the staff bots would be at number 1, but particularly the map bot. And at 8, parts and service. The parts and service section of this game did give me slight trauma when I first played it because of parts and service when I played FNAF VR on the channel, since it said to remove Bonnie's left eye and I kept grabbing my left, not Bonnie's. But this time it's much easier, but it being easier doesn't mean I can get it first try because I am incompetent. I had to try like 3 times because like the first time I clicked the wires and then it jump scared me. Then I did the wrong pattern because I was too focused on not clicking the wires, but I also have to admit the Headless Freddy jump scare is probably one of the coolest ones in this game. Like, it's not scary because he doesn't have a head, but the actual situation is very intense, especially since we just learned that there is no record of us in the security database, which should be impossible, which leads me to believe that someone, Vani, wiped us out so that we won't be missed, or that we're a robot crying child, but I still haven't finished the game yet, so I don't know. But to me, this was still a very intense moment, and then you gotta do it like 3 more times if you want to upgrade Freddy. And at 7, reveals. We don't know much about Security Breach. We know that it's planned on being a hide-and-seek style game, and that the main villain will be Vani, and that a couple new animatronics will be introduced along with the new location, the Mega Pizzaplex. But other than that, we don't really know anything. We now know that there are seemingly 2 ways to play the game, surviving until 6 AM and following the story. However, that's it. We don't know anything else. And some of the things that we do know are now put into question, which I'll talk about later. But honestly, if this game was any other game series, we wouldn't be excited for this game. If this game series wasn't my job at this point, there would be nothing to really talk about. But since this series is so popular, they can get away with giving us so little information. Like, think about it. What do we really know about what's going on in this game, or going to be in this game? Do we know anything about the story? No. We have speculation and theories. And that's where the mistakes come in. Because if this was literally any other game, no one would care. But because it's FNAF, everyone's excited. So I'm just saying they should have been giving us more. And at 6, the bunny. The suit that Vani wears and the suit that she is known for is no doubt inspired by Afton and his love for the Bonnie animatronic. Probably a little too much love considering how he was shoving Jeremy inside of it in 1985. However, I think that it's pretty obvious that Springtrap and even more so Glitchtrap, because of like the whole suit aesthetic, inspired Vani's suit as soon as we saw that she had bunny ears in that one promo image from like way back in 2019. Or even when we first saw her mask in FNAF VR in the Curse of Dreadbear DLC, even though it wasn't really a mask because her mask is a full-on head. But the suit that Vani wears is also clearly to be a suit, like made in a similar style to Glitchtrap suit, which suggests that William may have made it during one of his like takeovers. The suit is patchy with different materials and fabrics sewn in patches over certain places, like either because they're worn or because there was cuts or rips from her playing with her knife too much. But the stitching all over the body also suggests that it's actually a suit and that she's not just like an animatronic. Either way, making her a rabbit, at least in my opinion, was a mistake. Can we have something else, please? Be original. If you're going to be a serial killer, be original. Okay, get your own thing, damn it. William Afton is absolutely a furry. Halfway through, in at number 5, Tarzan. I mentioned before in other videos how the appearance of Monty when he drops off the swinging thing on the ceiling in the trailer is definitely in the game. However, something that I found interesting is that whatever he's swinging on, it should not physically be possible. Like, I get that it's a game and we need to suspend our disbelief, but this game is releasing on the next generation of consoles. Like, I can see Peter Parker running around his room in the reflection of like a kettle or a toaster in Spider-Man PS5, but you can't fix a pendulum swinging through what should be solid concrete on your ceiling, or like even if it's not concrete, just solid anything. For a game that's dead set on getting its details and its lore correct, so much so that they correct things in other games, you figured that they'd pay attention to something like that. There's not even like a rail system or even like just like the hint of a shadow indicates that it should be able to move forward and back. There's nothing. It's just a solid piece of the roof. Or I don't know, maybe that's the point and this game is all a dream. That would make some sense to me, but I don't want to deal with that because we all know how everyone thinks about dream theory. This is what happens, Scott. You make all these little tiny details, so when you end up forgetting something, we all think that it's a clue. Same with the next point. And at 4, misdirect. The Freddy and Friends cartoon was meant to be the way that the release date for Security Breach was revealed, or at least that's what we thought, until another State of Play trailer event released a new trailer for the game that gave us the official release date, making the other 2 episodes obsolete. If if they were ever planned. Now, there are two ways that this could be a mistake. One, if they just got the timing wrong and they were supposed to start releasing episodes 2 weeks early, or if this was their plan all along, I would also consider that a mistake. As someone who went to college for advertising, I do know a couple things, contrary to popular belief, and honestly, if they had 6 episodes that slowly revealed the date, but then the last one got corrupted, and then the actual trailer revealed the full date, that would have been much better in my opinion. It would have been much stronger. The hype for the release date would have been building longer, and the State of Play trailer wouldn't have just come out of the blue. So I think that this was indeed an actual mistake, and that they were supposed to be releasing the other 2 episodes earlier, ending on the week that the State of Play trailer event happened. But someone screwed the pooch. The giant, face-eating, possessed animatronic pooch. Penultimately, in at number 2, Daycare. Now, the Daycare section of the game is certainly an interesting one, because this dude is all kinds of creepy in probably the worst ways possible. But that whole Daycare sequence, in my opinion, is one of the scariest sections of the game, or at least that I've experienced so far. The lights being completely out and the desperate need to turn them back on is surely something that I don't want to relive. Like, it's so creepy, and I don't know how else to describe it. It's absolute pure terror. The fact that this is a children's caretaker that is literally killing me because I'm up past my bedtime is one of the most horrific concepts I think I've seen, like, in practice. Like, who the absolute living hell thought this would be a good idea? And not only that, but also, like, it's like in the first part of the game. This is before you even get to the main atrium of the Pizzaplex. Plus, there's like a flashlight battery upgrade that you can get that I totally missed because it's in like some hidden area at the back, and I'm still mad about that. I don't really use my flashlight anyway, and I recharge it basically every time I can. But this guy is like the next Afton, okay? He's hella creepy, and he legit reminds me of my uncle. And finally, in at number 1, Endos. Now this is some horrifying. The Endos section of Security Breach before you can enter parts and service is so goddamn freaky. I don't know how it's possible. I'm glad that like I don't have like a fear of robots, otherwise this would have had me shivering under my desk. Having animatronics chase you is one thing, okay? Having bare endoskeletons chasing you with no casing on them that just move when you don't look at them like FNAF weeping angels is some of the most nightmare-inducing shit I have seen since FNAF 4. And yes, that's a joke because FNAF 4 is all about a nightmare, but still, they only move when you don't look at them. Plus, when you get the security upgrade that you're supposed to get so you can get into the parts and service area, you turn on like 10 additional endos at once who end up chasing you until you can get somewhere safe. Like, you can hide and they will eventually leave, but anyone who's robophobic is going to absolutely despise and loathe this section. I'm only arachnophobic and I still hated that. So, good luck. And finally, the Rooftop Ending. The Rooftop Ending is unlocked by exiting the Pizzaplex through the prize counter and clicking leave. This will prompt Freddy to burn the place to the ground and for the two of you to escape onto the roof. I don't know what Freddy's original plan was, because like I don't think he would fit on the fire escape. Maybe he would just jump down and then you'd take the fire escape. But when Gregory gets to the roof, Vani is seemingly there waiting for us, somehow. She grabs us, but Freddy, with his new eyes, actually sees Vani now and jumps with her off of the roof, causing them both to fall. They both seemingly die, or I guess Vani dies and Freddy is just inoperational, and we take off Vani's mask, revealing Vanessa behind it. We look confused and the comic ends. However, before actually ending and showing us the final news clipping, another couple panels are shown, with Vanessa standing up on the rooftop looking down at what just happened. This is probably one of the most confusing endings since it shows us that there are apparently 2 Vanessas, and while we seemingly knew about the whole like double life thing, we hadn't exactly seen the 2 characters in the same room again, so we thought that there was only one of them. And in the Princess Quest ending, we seemingly save Vani, so what the hell is going on here? The simplest answer has us sounding like a middle school English teacher, with symbolism being always an option in this series. And with Scott, I think that this is probably the right place to talk symbolism, because it's FNAF. Unlike Shakespeare though, he didn't mean anything. Now, this is probably not actually 2 Vanessas. It could just simply be Vanessa's soul looking down at her body. We know that souls are actually a thing in this universe thanks to FNAF 3's cutscenes where Purple Guy gets spring-trapped. Those souls had physical forms that caused him to freak out. This could just be Vanessa regretting all the things she did as Vani, even if it was unwilling. This could also just be more than that as well, where there could legitimately be 2 different Vanessas, with one either being a robot or from another universe, since we have the whole Fazbear Fanverse initiative, and the multiple endings things indicates that there are multiple universes already, or they could just be twins, but I think it would be more cool if Vani is a robot. Like, I hated this theory in the early days, mostly because people were treating it as fact. However, in the previously discussed canon or Springtrap ending, we did have to fight off Springtrap, but we have to do it as Gregory since, like I said, he takes control over Freddy. But why didn't he take control over us? This man, more than anyone, should know that you always gotta get rid of the kids, because they're always gonna be the ones to screw you. So, like, why didn't he just, like, take control of Freddy and, like, keep us inside, or take control of both of us if he could? I mean, he had Roxy under his control in that same scene, right? So we know that he can control multiple things, and I think it's probably because no matter what, he can only possess robotic beings. Combine this seemingly obvious limit with the fact that Vani doesn't start bleeding after hitting the ground, and you have some solid evidence, but I'm sure that it was just her soul looking back at what she did, fire surrounding her so that she actually makes sure she dies. Because, you know, Remnant can only be killed by fire. The worst ending. The worst ending is actually the second one I got, with the Facer Quest ending being the first. But this ending is just if you leave the Pizzaplex at 6 AM through the front doors. However, this is labeled as the worst ending for very good reason, since after escaping, Gregory obviously runs away from the Pizzaplex, but he doesn't seem to go to any house. Instead, he finds a cardboard box in an alleyway and uses newspaper talking about the children who've gone missing at the Pizzaplex as a blanket, with a silhouette of what looks a lot like him in the bottom left corner, might I add. But it doesn't seem to matter though, since a red light comes on and we see Vani's shadow appear in front of us. She finally ended up getting us. Now, this actually has a little bit to unpack, because firstly, if Gregory has a home, why didn't he run back there? I mean, like, yeah, it's later and he's been up for a while, but even if I was stuck in a pizzeria for 6 hours and almost died multiple times and was finally able to escape, I don't care if my house is on the other side of the planet, okay? I'm booking it as far as I possibly can. The fact that he hides in a box and then uses a newspaper as a blanket to sleep. Also, he uses that absolutely horribly, might I add. Like, bro, just turn it 90 degrees and you'd actually have a decent blanket. It would cover your body. And, like, maybe Vani wouldn't have found you that way. Like, I know that it was for readability in the ending, but whatever, okay? I don't care. Him hiding in a cardboard box, though, seems very similar to how I thought of homelessness as a child. Just, like, grab a box and use it as your shelter. It's also how cartoons seem to depict it a lot. This leads me to believe that he has no home, only adding to the confusion and mystery of his character. Like, how the ever-loving hell does that work? Like, even if he is an orphan, he would have been taken to an orphanage. I don't know how many kids actually run away from orphanages, cause like, it's either that or this. So, I don't know, it makes who he is even more of a mystery, since we know nothing about him other than he probably went to the pizzeria to try and find the missing kids, since he's using it as a blanket. Next up, the good ending. The good ending is probably the least lore-heavy of all the endings, which makes it a simple explanation. With a level 7 security pass, or I guess 7 level 1 passes, since we collect a new one every time and don't really get a better one, maybe. If you go to the loading dock, which is next to the trash compactor that you would have found if you went to the bottom of the map instead of through L chips when first entering the atrium to leave, there was a door that previously couldn't open. But this time, Gregory and Freddy will escape in a van, as long as you have level 7 security. Gregory will be driving the van, but Freddy will eventually run out of power. However, Gregory will actually solve this power issue by loading up Freddy with the charge from the car's battery using jumper cables. Now, how Gregory, a 6 or 10 or whatever year old kid, has any idea of how not only to connect the jumper cables properly to the battery, then connect them to Freddy is one thing, okay? Like, maybe he's like a kid who really likes cars. But this still adds more confusion, cause like, how does this little kid know so goddamn much? If he's around 6 like I've been thinking since the start of the game, cause like he can fit in strollers and is so short that he can't drive the go-karts on his own, there has to be something more going on here than him just being a gearhead. Like, how can he fit in a stroller but also reach the pedals for the frickin' van, dude? What? With the muscles throughout the rest of the endo, that's way too intricate to actually have been placed there. And they would only be there and not dangling if it had been stuck there after being shoved full of machine parts. I don't think that they're taking super glue to glue these fibers back onto a new endoskeleton. If Afton was going to transfer his head to a new endo, it wouldn't come with the rest of his body bits. It wouldn't. That's not how it works. Which would mean this would have to be Springtrap's endoskeleton, which also also explains why it's so run down, why he shambles, and why he hardly has any casing. And Springtrap's design also seems to change from game to game. From FNAF 3 to FNAF 6 he was totally different, so him changing again in Security Breach seems like no big deal in comparison. It's basically normal for him to get a newer and seemingly scarier attempt at his design with a new game. And at least this has an understandable progression from the last game and even from FNAF 3, since it's more run down and not just a bigger head like Scraptrap. It's like he sold his soul for a bigger head and then the demon kinda made a joke out of it. The most reasonable assumption that I have for what happened though was that he was given the hands of Glamrock Vani since it has the claws, and just he wasn't given the entire endoskeleton. But then again, his arms have the bits of muscle and nerve fibers as well, which means that it would have to have been his old one, it would have to have been there from the start, it would have to be the arm of the old endoskeleton, which is a whole other conundrum because Scraptrap was missing an arm and Springtrap didn't have any casing on his foot, yet here we are. I just think that we have to kind of leave this one up to artistic license and accept that it's meant to be the same endoskeleton, just with a replacement part or two from Glamrock Vani instead of like the entire endoskeleton. It makes sense, honestly, and it's really the only reasonable explanation that we have. Unless the colors are wrong on the images that I was looking at and the bits on the hands are just meant to be melted casing, which is possible, but I doubt it. As for if he's wanted dead or alive, I think this version of Afton is actually finally dead. And honestly, I'm happy about that because it means that even if he's still here, we can kill him off for good. This is the most logical conclusion to me because, well, other than him basically being only a head, this guy has had multiple backslides of, oh, I'm dead, just kidding. And this time around, while we instantly predicted that he had indeed survived, I think that Scott is finally flipping the narrative on us. We predicted it, so it's not gonna happen. Afton is no longer connected to his body, as we can clearly see from the formation of Glitchtrap. And Glitchtrap being created would only be possible if Afton died, since the one you should not have killed was dead set on keeping him breathing. But Burntrap, this guy doesn't even have lungs anymore. So yeah, this version of Afton's body is dead, but his consciousness lives on. Like how there's like the conspiracy that Walt Disney froze his head. Yeah, well, that's kind of what they did with Glitchtrap. And then that programming was probably uploaded into his old host, or I guess vessel, since I've been rewatching Supernatural. Basically, this guy would be impossible if he wasn't just Afton's code loaded onto an endoskeleton. Plus, the eyes are clearly robotic this time around with purple pupils, rather than the previous iterations that had seemingly real eyes, Afton's actual eyes, since it was in suit mode after he got snapped. And opening his head in those like secret FNAF 3 screens revealed that it was actually like his eyes because they were seemingly in the same place. So, all in all, here's the story of Burntrap as far as I can tell. During the FNAF 6 fire, Afton passes out. Not dead, but still somehow alive thanks to the one you should not have killed, Crying Child. This leads to the events of Ultimate Custom Night that sees Afton stuck in his own mind trying to escape so that his spirit can move on. But Crying Child, represented by a golden bear like the one who crushed his skull, tries to keep him stuck, until eventually he throws everything that he has at him. 50-20 mode. After being so weakened by the fire, William survives this attack on his mind, and Crying Child's spirit is set free, hence the spasming bear at the end of that mode. That's him burning as the fire sets his soul free. William's soul then latches onto the nearest thing that it can find, one of the hard drives in the storage room that the Scraptrap animatronic was being kept in. One that gets scanned to create the Freddy Fazbear virtual experience as the company tries to rebuild its reputation. Then, not wanting to waste the land that was bought for their company, Fazbear Entertainment begins building a new pizzaplex on top of their old location. Whether this is due to Glitchtrap possessing someone higher up at the company through the game or someone just wanting to save money is up in the air, but the remains of the FNAF 6 simulated pizzeria are buried under the pizzaplex's foundation. That's when Vanessa comes along, our player character from Help Wanted, who reassembles the 16 cassette tapes in an effort to destroy Afton once and for all, but ultimately fails. The concept of Burntrap has been annoying me since I first learned of his existence, since it seemingly exists separate from Glitchtrap. Up until this point, we were running under the assumption that William's body finally aided in the FNAF 6 fire, but that his soul ended up latching onto a hard drive that got scanned into Help Wanted, which is how Glitchtrap was born, because William was able to use the agony from the fire to keep on living and finally become a spirit, something like that. But with some of William's body still being in the suit, what the hell is going on here? That's what we're exploring and aim to answer today, and you know what? I think I did. The main issue I've been having is whether William is dead or alive. And there are a couple different things to consider here. Firstly, he is seemingly in a new endoskeleton, which would indicate that he's dead and Glitchtrap's consciousness is just being transferred into Burntrap's spot via the recharge station. But his head is clearly visible. Like, you can see his skull and his actual human jaw, meaning that he could still be holding on to this world via that head, especially given who we're talking about here. The most stubborn to ever grace our screens. This also can't be a new Endo, and just the model that they're using for the others since it was easier and they could release the game faster. This seems to be indicated by the way that Burntrap walks. If this was a new endoskeleton, why would he be shambling like a zombie? But the claws and repaired sections to the actual Endo also seem to indicate that this is also a new Endo and possibly even Glamrock Bonnie's. So there's a whole lot of wrong going on here. All the points are intersecting and it's not fun. Originally, I was against the whole Glamrock Bonnie endoskeleton thing because, well, frankly, the body in the suit kind of disproved it for me, but I think I might have found a way to make it work. However, looking at the model, I'm still not 100% sure. If this was the Glamrock Bonnie Endo, it would need to have broader shoulders and actually be shorter. Like, even scaling the Glamrock Endo so that they're the same height, the Endos, when posed the same and lined up, just they don't match. There are similarities, of course, between the two designs, but there aren't enough similarities where I can call this even really above 50%. There's also the issue of the muscles being woven throughout the body, or maybe those are nerve fibers. If it was just the head, I'd understand, since they could have just pulled the old Endo head and put it onto the new body. Since all the parts were intertwined, Afton's head would have come with it. But next up, Phaser Quest. While having this ending unlocked is required for the Princess Quest ending, that's because you need to access the Princess Quest minigame. But without playing the other two, you can't play the third. So this ending actually ends up killing Vani. Since without the game, you have to make your way up to her room and hit the button that turns the animatronics against her. And since she has just had them disassemble Freddy, we as Gregory tell the animatronics to disassemble her, which results in the first killing to be committed by an actual kid in this game series, because they literally tear her to shreds. We don't see her corpse, which leads me to think that maybe it would have been too gory, or because it would have been revealed that Vani was an animatronic, but I don't think that it would have been the latter. I think that it just would have been too gory, because like Freddy is absolutely destroyed when you see that. That would have been not pretty. But more on that other idea later, because there's another ending that indicates that there's more going on here than you realize. Get it? Because that's what Vani says in the trailer. Next, Princess Quest. This is probably my favorite ending in the whole game because it's something that I was cluing into before I read anything about the other endings to the game, which I only did once I actually beat it because I wanted to make videos like this. Princess Quest ending has to be set up for a decent amount of time before you actually finish the game, since the player needs to locate and beat all 3 Princess Quest arcade machines. The third one is in Vani's room above Phaser Blast. The second is where you find Music Man Spider, or DJ Music Man for those who aren't cool like I am. And the final is in Roxy's Raceway, in like the beauty salon thing, which I didn't actually check because I didn't think that that would be a thing. Now, you have to beat Phaser Quest to be able to get this ending because you need to discover the room that has the third game in it. So you need to find Vani's room, and this is what triggers the Phaser Quest ending. And as I was thinking, you need to beat the first game, and then beat the second game, and then choose the Vani ending and play the third one. This will result in the player actually saving Vanessa, and thus finding Vani's mask on the floor. How did that save Vanessa, you ask? Like, all we did was beat arcade games? Well, it's actually fairly simple. Help Wanted. If you've seen any of the videos where I discuss the endings of Help Wanted and then how we complete the puzzle and like the final battle and we get locked behind the door, you'll know that I said that us doing that puzzle thing was just to distract us, so that William had more of an opportunity to shut us away in our own mind. And seemingly he does that. And Princess Quest actually proves me right, since at the end of Princess Quest 3 you open a giant door with a large keyhole surrounded by glitching cracks. And in Help Wanted, we get sealed behind a door with a large keyhole along with cracks and handprints. This with the obvious connection via Princess Quest to Help Wanted, because it was ported into the flat mobile port of the game because they couldn't actually include Glitchtrap due to size limitations because you know it's a phone game. So us opening that door is releasing the player from Help Wanted, who now is confirmed to be Vanessa, from the wall that Afton set up. Since after this door opens, we see her mask on the floor and even sit on a hill with Vanessa and Freddy's head in the final shot of that ending, which is similar to the final shot shot of the canon ending. This is truly the best ending, but it's unfortunately not the canon one. Next, the Springtrap ending. The Springtrap ending, or the canon ending, or true ending, whatever you want to call it, is unlocked, as I figured it was going to be, by finding the secret elevator and the secret section in Roxy's Raceway. It's down the stairs next to where you find the test driver head. Instead of actually getting the head, you just go to the left and go down the stairs. This requires your Freddy to have the Monty Claws, however, so this is potentially unlockable right after installing them, since that's when you're given the mission to go to Roxy's Raceway. You can also do this if you choose to stay after completing the game, however that will result in you having to deal with Monty's boss battle in one go without saving, since save states are disabled after you could have escaped, so it's less likely that that's gonna happen. After making your way into Burn Trap's area though, Freddy will be taken over by Springtrap using code, or at least he starts to try to take over him, and it's up to Gregory to defeat him by using 3 monitors, and you gotta press the buttons to burn him. The player will also need to avoid the animatronic enemies that are coming for Gregory and use the doors to temporarily lock them out. When Springtrap is finally burned though, the Blob, which was the tentacle monster from the very first Freddy and Friends cartoon, will attack him, making sure that he doesn't get free. Freddy and Gregory will be shown escaping and sitting on a hill together, and I think my original theory about this was right. This tentacle monster was never revealed or never had anything else that had to do with them, but after this game, the final Fazbear Frights book would have originally released, so it would have been after this, but due to delays, the game came out after the final books were released that showed us what the tentacle monster would have been about, and it's how it's in fact Baby, or I guess Elizabeth Afton, who stopped her father but probably will be the one controlling Vani now, since in the canon ending, Vani doesn't actually die, and I think that that's worth noting. When our mind is distracted by following Tape Girl's instructions, William locks us in our mind and in the Princess Quest minigame that would later get ported to an arcade cabinet for insurance purposes. And by insurance, I mean like insurance on Vanessa so that she wouldn't easily be able to escape. As Vani, William then uses the animatronics to dig out his body and put his old endoskeleton in a recharge station so that when he's able to transfer himself back into it, he'll be able to move. After all, at this point, he's not a spirit, but simply coding, which means that in another game, if he is still alive, we'll actually be able to kill him off. He also gives his old suit some upgrades in the form of Glam Rock Bonnie's hands and right foot. Why would he not go with a new, more powerful endo, you ask? Because it's William and his Spring Bonnie suit. It's his body in there. Of course he'd want it back. He's been that way for like at least 40 years at this point. It's all he knows. Then as Gregory and Freddy jump down into the pit, William can sense it. Either because he's an animatronic, because one or both of them are meant to be his kids, or something else, he activates his body even though it's not fully charged and tries to take over Freddy. He's not fully charged, hence the shambling, which Gregory ends up preventing with fire, which has surely traumatized Afton by now, and considering how he's only code, this time fire would actually finish the job. Eventually, the place actually catches on fire and Freddy and Gregory escape, but the Blob grabs hold of William. Whether it was to save him or seal his fate is unknown, but this almost certainly isn't the end of William Afton's story.